reaction it provokes, as opposed to what it naturally is, which is just something that takes place inside you that you have been given the gift of being able to realize and to bring into manifestation. And so I really, I guess, I've always felt strongly on just listening to what your imagination dictates. If your imagination, I'm the kind of person, I'll shift from liking one kind of music to liking another kind of music, to where I'll go through a period of 3 years where I'm obsessed with one kind of music, and then 3 years later I can't even imagine why I was listening to it. I'm so much in a different place, because it was just where my imagination gradually led me. Gradually the idea of listening to one thing stopped being exciting, and gradually the idea of listening to another thing seemed more exciting. And it's because I'm judging music based on its quality, and obviously if a person was judging music based on how popular it was or something, you would tend to focus your interests around things that were popular, and you would tend to make sure that all your musical efforts were coordinated with the standards that the public sets of what's considered the best, and I believe that kind of thing can make the imagination of a person that should be changing from one thing into the other into having a fixed idea of what's great, and the mind should naturally just shift from one thing to the other, because that's the nature of the mind. It jumps from one thought to the other all the time. We have no control over that, but it can. I'm not going to go into that, but it's the nature of everything in reality to change from one thing into another, and our minds are doing it all the time, and there's no reason that a person shouldn't completely shift their interests from one musical form to another, or shift their idea of what the idea of a great guitarist is, or what the idea of what music should do is. It's all really natural, and to let the ideas of what society tells you, this is a great guitarist, he's number one, nobody's better than him. It's just what that ends up doing is just putting a fixed idea about something that people should never have a fixed idea about. You might, I'll go through phases where I'm studying completely, guitar players who really weren't very well practiced, but that and didn't have a lot of technique or anything, but their ideas were so strong, and the emotion that they put into what they do was so strong, and they were so unique and original that they, for that period of time, seemed better than somebody like Jeff Beck or Jimi Hendrix, the people who I also consider to be, the greatest. It's just but I can't see someone like Bernard Sumner from Joy Division as being any less than what Jimi Hendrix was. In my eyes, they're the same thing, and depending on my mood or depending on the time in my life, I'll see one as being extremely relevant to my life, and I'll see another one as having no relevance, and then it'll turn around the other way again. I'm really happy that's the way that the brain works, and that's the nature of music, is that I don't really think I think only the individual can say for themselves what's good and what's worthwhile. It's these ideas that are perpetuated, where that trick us into thinking that there's some sort of a criteria for these things is ridiculous. It's only what makes you feel what you feel, and only you know that, So sometimes you got to clear your head a little bit and get away from caring about what your friends think is cool or whatever, to really listening to your subconscious and listening to your own real feelings, and deciding for yourself, what feels right to you. I said I hated music that I didn't hate. I just hated the kids who I associated it with, So when things like Depeche Mode and stuff came out, I didn't think I liked it, and Duran Duran and stuff like that, and I knew in the back of my head that I did like the sound of it, but at the time that it came out, there was no way that I was going to make any sort of that I was even going to admit to myself that I liked it, because I was concerned about the outer appearance of what that would mean if I liked it or something, or creating some kind of a fixed identity of me as the guy who really, you know, into the music I was into, which obviously I was also really, I was much more into than I would have been then anyways, but you know, with whatever things like King Crimson and Genesis and Yes and stuff like that, that was where what I was what I really related to the most, and what I felt like gave me identity. But gradually, when I did start to get into things like Depeche Mode and Duran Duran, I was like, you know, I remember liking this when I heard it. I just didn't admit it to myself, you know. Would have been one thing to keep it secret from other people, that's its own issue, but to not even let myself know it. I remember recording a Depeche Mode song on the radio, and then when I realized it was them, I stopped recording it, and you know, and it was, you know, I loved the sound of it, and that should have been all I was going by, you know. I shouldn't have been concerned about, oh, these people like it who I don't like, or something like that, you know. It's like, it's a silly way to think, and I guess I have the reverse of it. Most people like things because other people like them, and I think either way you're doing yourself an injustice, because you like everything you like for a reason. If something sounds good to you, it sounds that way for a reason, and even if you don't understand something right away, sometimes if there's some little part of your brain that says there's something healthy here, or there's something interesting here, sometimes it's important also to do that. I did that, you know, with jazz and stuff. Like, I guess I grew up around classical music, so I didn't have an ear for jazz the way some people do when they're young, but I knew that there was something there for me, and so I learned things on my guitar and gradually developed the receptors in my brain, the emotional receptors in my brain that relate to the types of feelings and sounds and chords and melodies that are in that kind of music. And you know, there's been so many forces working against people to come up with a fixed idea of what they like that sometimes you kind of have to train yourself to figure out what you actually like, because it turns out I really love jazz and it really means a lot to me, but those doors hadn't been opened up in my head, or like I said, just those receptors hadn't needed to be woken up, you know. So I really just think it's important to pay attention to the nature of the way that the brain relates to music, and to listen to every little thing it dictates in terms of how you can get more from all the wealth of beautiful music that there is in the world. There's an incredible amount of great music. It's unbelievable that so much has resulted from us. I mean, there's as much as there is food growing out of the ground and plants growing out of the ground. It's, you know, it's there if you gravitate towards it and if you put the energy into it. I think it's really unwise to just, you know, buy whatever the thing is that's pushed down your throat next. You know, it's like it's important to look for things and to find things yourself. You'll find that something is guiding you towards the things that you need to be listening to. The more you do it, the more in touch with that force you'll be. You know, nature wants you to look at its beautiful fruits and eat its beautiful fruits and eat its vegetables and look at its trees and feel its wind. And nature wants you to listen to the music that it's resulted in. You know, no reason to think of the efforts of man as being separate from nature. It's all just one thing. It's nature. It's what exists, one thing. I get the impression, I talked to a psychic, and she said something about my cats liking they enjoy the noise that I make. And she also said something about them not having the same perception of time that we do. So it started to make me wonder, because music is so intrinsically connected to time. It is sound being structured through time. That their perception of it, they wouldn't hear the organization of it in the way that we do. It's funny how with a piece of music, you're just following your feelings, but you play something that is good in the form that you make it in. But if one note was off, if one note was in a slightly different place, it would sound totally wrong and sound like it didn't at all follow a coherent train of thought. it's real specific why one note sounds good following the next. And again, it's something you just gradually learn by following your intuition. It's not something